They rise from the sands like sentinels of another world, timeless, unshaken, and endlessly mysterious. For thousands of years, the Great Pyramids of Egypt have stood as symbols of power, eternity, and unanswered questions. We've been told they were tombs, that they were built by tens of thousands of laborers, using copper tools and sheer willpower. But what if that story isn't the full truth? What if the pyramids aren't just ancient monuments, but encrypted messages left behind by a forgotten civilization, or something even more unthinkable? In this documentary, we dive deep into the anomalies, the precision, the hidden chambers, and the mathematical impossibilities, following a trail of evidence that leads to a strange and controversial question. Who really built the pyramids, and why is the truth being buried? The mainstream historical narrative regarding construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza has long been accepted and taught as fact in classrooms and documentaries around the world. According to conventional Egyptologists, the pyramid was commissioned by Pharaoh Khufu, also known as Cheops, around 4,500 years ago during Egypt's Old Kingdom, specifically in the 4th dynasty. It is believed to have taken roughly 20 years to build and was constructed as a monumental tomb for the pharaoh, a practice consistent with ancient Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife and the divine status of their rulers. The traditional story states that a workforce of approximately 100,000 laborers, though some scholars argue the number may have been closer to 20,000 or 30,000, was employed in its construction. These workers, according to more recent interpretations, were not slaves as once popularly believed, but rather paid laborers or conscripted peasants who worked in rotation. Archaeological discoveries such as workers' camps, bakeries, breweries, and even cemeteries near the pyramid site support the notion that these laborers were fed and housed during the project. This aligns with a growing academic consensus that labor was structured, seasonal, and part of national duty or religious offering to the gods. The materials used in the pyramid's construction, as per traditional accounts, were primarily limestone for the bulk of the structure, granite for the inner chambers, and basalt for the surrounding pavement. The massive blocks, some weighing as much as 80 tons, were allegedly quarried locally and transported using sleds, wooden rollers, and manpower, then hauled up using massive earthen ramps whose design and placement remain debated to this day. The most popular theory suggests a straight or zigzagging ramp that extended along one face of the pyramid or spiraled around it, although no conclusive physical evidence of such a ramp has ever been found. The copper tools theory is another key element of the conventional narrative. It is proposed that workers shaped stone using simple copper chisels, hammers, and dolerite pounders. However, granite is one of the hardest natural stones, significantly tougher than copper, which raises questions about how those tools could have been used to carve and shape the blocks, especially in the king's chamber, which required extremely precise cuts. What lends the official story credibility in the eyes of many historians is the presence of inscriptions and graffiti found within hidden chambers above the king's chamber in the Great Pyramid. These markings include the name of Khufu and references to work crews, like the Friends of Khufu, which appear to affirm the link between the pharaoh and construction. However, even these markings are the subject of debate, with some researchers suggesting they may have been added much later or even forged during early explorations of the pyramid in the 19th century. In spite of all these claims, there is a surprising lack of contemporary records from Khufu's time that mention the pyramid's construction in detail. The pyramid texts, which were found in later pyramids, provide insight into Egyptian spiritual beliefs but offer little about architectural methods. Herodotus, the Greek historian writing 2,000 years after the fact, describes the use of levers and machinery, but his account is largely anecdotal and riddled with inconsistencies. Another curious point is the absence of elaborate tomb decorations inside the Great Pyramid. Other tombs of Egyptian royalty and nobility are filled with intricate carvings, inscriptions, and paintings that guide the deceased through the afterlife. The Great Pyramid, however, is starkly plain and undecorated on the inside. This has led to speculation that it might not have originally served as a tomb, or that its intended function was more complex and possibly symbolic, perhaps even related to energy or celestial alignment. Furthermore, the level of mathematical precision and engineering involved in constructing the Great Pyramid appears inconsistent with the tools and knowledge assumed to be available to a Bronze Age civilization. The Great Pyramid's alignment to true north is nearly perfect, surpassing even modern buildings constructed with the help of GPS. Its dimensions encode mathematical constants like pi and the golden ratio, and it is oriented to mirror the three stars of Orion's belt when placed in context with the other pyramids on the Giza Plateau. While defenders of the traditional theory argue that this may be coincidence or the result of observational astronomy, critics find it implausible that such exactness could be achieved without advanced tools or knowledge. Despite all the physical evidence presented by archaeologists, the conventional theory still leaves many questions unanswered. Why are there no detailed blueprints, records, or inscriptions describing how one of humanity's greatest feats of engineering was accomplished? Why has no other pyramid, despite being built in similar eras, match the precision or scale of Khufu's pyramid? Why do even modern engineers admit that replicating such a structure with present-day technology would be a monumental challenge? In the face of these questions, the traditional narrative begins to feel less like a definitive account and more like a plausible framework built around limited and often circumstantial evidence. While it provides a structured and comfortable explanation, it doesn't fully account for the anomalies, the missing evidence, or the sheer magnitude of the engineering involved. These gaps in the mainstream version of events are precisely what have fueled alternative theories, inviting further exploration into the possibility that the Great Pyramid's origins may be far more complex and stranger than we've been led to believe. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands not only as a monumental structure of ancient Egypt, but also as a riddle that defies conventional understanding. One of the most mystifying aspects of the pyramid lies in its extraordinary mathematical and astronomical precision. This is not a vague or speculative claim. It is grounded in measurements and calculations that modern science has confirmed. The structure demonstrates a level of knowledge and accuracy that many experts find difficult to reconcile with what we assume to be the technological capabilities of a civilization from over 4,500 years ago. To begin with, the pyramid is aligned with an astonishing level of accuracy to the cardinal directions north, south, east, and west. Its sides are oriented within a fraction of a degree to true north, an alignment so precise that it rivals, and in some cases exceeds, modern buildings constructed using digital instruments and GPS technology. This raises immediate questions. How did ancient Egyptians, who supposedly had no advanced tools, achieve such alignment? Navigating by the stars or the sun may provide some guidance, but achieving this degree of precision without modern instruments would require an understanding of astronomy and measurement far beyond what is officially credited to the builders of the time. Moreover, the pyramid incorporates mathematical constants in ways that suggest intentional design rather than coincidence. For example, when you take the perimeter of the base of the Great Pyramid and divide it by its height, the result is approximately 2 pi. This essentially means that the pyramid functions as a three-dimensional representation of a circle, a squared circle, a geometric problem that fascinated mathematicians for centuries. Some argue this inclusion of pi could be accidental, but the level of consistency across the pyramid's measurements makes random chance seem unlikely. The ratio between the height and the base also closely approximates the golden ratio, or phi 1.618, which is often found in nature, art, and architecture, because of its aesthetically pleasing properties. The application of such advanced ratios within the design of the pyramid suggests an awareness of complex mathematical relationships. Another area that draws considerable intrigue is the pyramid's dimensions and how they relate to Earth itself. Some researchers have observed that the dimensions of the Great Pyramid encode information about the planet, including the equatorial circumference and polar radius. For instance, if you multiply the height of the pyramid by 43,200, you get a figure close to the Earth's polar radius. Likewise, if you take the perimeter of the pyramid and apply the same multiplier, the result approximates the Earth's equatorial circumference. These are not random numbers. They are specific and consistent across calculations. The number 43,200, interestingly, corresponds to a scale used in ancient Sumerian and Hindu cosmology, suggesting either a shared knowledge base or a global system of measurement that modern historians have not fully uncovered. Beyond numbers, the placement of the pyramids on the Giza Plateau adds another layer to the mystery. The three main pyramids of Giza align almost perfectly with the three stars of Orion's belt. This correlation, proposed by researchers such as Robert Bauval, suggests that the ancient Egyptians may have had a cosmic plan behind their architectural choices. Orion was closely associated with the god Osiris in Egyptian mythology, the deity of the afterlife and rebirth. If this alignment was intentional, it implies that the layout of the pyramids was designed with an understanding of celestial mechanics, possibly symbolizing a journey to the stars or an attempt to mirror heaven on earth. Additionally, the sides of the Great Pyramid are slightly concave, meaning they curve inward ever so slightly. This architectural feature is incredibly subtle and nearly invisible to the naked eye, yet it is present on all four sides. It is believed that this was an intentional design choice, possibly to prevent the structure from collapsing or to play with the light and shadow during solstices. The idea that such intricate architectural features were included with such precision suggests that the builders had a level of architectural understanding that challenges the idea of primitive construction methods. Furthermore, during the equinoxes and solstices, the shadows and light play across the pyramid in specific ways, creating phenomena that may have had ritual or symbolic importance. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun sets almost directly in line with the pyramid's western face. Such alignments reinforce the theory that the pyramid functioned not only as a tomb but possibly as an observatory, a calendar, or even a kind of energy device whose full purpose we still don't comprehend. Compounding the mystery is the fact that no construction blueprints, detailed records, or instructions have ever been found describing how these precise alignments and measurements were achieved. Unlike later Roman and Greek architecture, which often included writings and documentation, ancient Egyptian texts are silent on the mathematical planning behind the pyramids. It's as though this knowledge was either considered sacred and deliberately hidden or passed down orally through priesthoods and lost over time. The overwhelming precision and cosmic order embedded in the Great Pyramid are difficult to explain using the limited tools and knowledge traditionally attributed to ancient Egyptian society. Whether these accomplishments were the result of a now-lost advanced civilization, contact with unknown sources of knowledge, or simply the work of brilliant minds using ingenious but forgotten methods, one thing remains clear. The pyramid is far more than a pile of stones. It is a machine of knowledge, a structure that encodes universal principles and seems to reach across time to challenge our assumptions about the ancient world. One of the most persistent and troubling questions surrounding the Great Pyramid of Giza concerns the sheer physical mechanics of its construction. The pyramid is made up of over 2.3 million stone blocks, with each block weighing between 2 to 80 tons. Some of the most massive stones, such as the granite beams in the King's Chamber, weigh over 50 tons each and were transported from quarries in Aswan, nearly 500 miles away. According to the conventional explanation, these blocks were moved using sleds and manpower, then raised into position with earthen ramps. However, despite centuries of research, no definitive physical evidence of such a ramp has been discovered at the site, and modern engineers struggle to agree on how a ramp system capable of handling that scale would have worked, especially given the precision with which the stones were placed. This leads to what many researchers call the technology paradox, the idea that the tools and methods credited to the builders do not match the complexity and refinement of the structure they supposedly created. For instance, it is widely accepted that ancient Egyptians used copper chisels, dolerite pounders, and basic stone tools to shape the limestone and granite. But granite is one of the hardest materials on Earth, registering a 6 or 7 on the Mohs hardness scale, while copper registers only a 3. It is difficult, if not impossible, to imagine how tens of thousands of tons of granite could have been cut and shaped so precisely using tools that are significantly softer than the material being worked on. In fact, some of the cuts in the granite blocks, especially those found in the King's Chamber, are so smooth and accurate that they resemble the results of modern-day machine tools. The level of finish suggests the use of saws or drills with extreme stability and power. Circular drill marks found in certain stones indicate that tubular drills were used, which would require a level of rotational speed and pressure far beyond what hand tools could generate. Some researchers have measured these spiral grooves and found them to be consistent with high-speed drilling, suggesting the possibility of a lost technology or a method that has not yet been rediscovered. Equally perplexing is the issue of lifting and placing the stones with pinpoint precision. Modern cranes today would struggle to lift and position 50-ton granite beams at such a height, especially with the accuracy needed to construct stable chambers and passageways deep inside the pyramid. The King's Chamber itself is roofed with massive granite slabs that were placed with such precision that they are nearly airtight. There is no clear explanation for how these blocks were hoisted up through narrow passages and carefully positioned without modern machinery, and there are no visible signs of scaffolding, lifting devices, or the extensive construction infrastructure one would expect for such a massive undertaking. Adding to the puzzle is the complete absence of construction records. No blueprints, no diagrams, and no detailed inscriptions have ever been discovered that describe the process of building the Great Pyramid. While ancient Egypt is one of the most well-documented civilizations in history, with hieroglyphs adorning tombs, temples, and monuments, the pyramid, arguably the most ambitious and complex project of all, remains silent. The interior of the Great Pyramid is remarkably bare, with no elaborate wall carvings or decorative inscriptions, leading some to question whether it was even built as a tomb, as the official narrative suggests. Moreover, there are logistical inconsistencies in the accepted construction timeline. If the pyramid was indeed built in 20 years, as commonly stated, then roughly one block would have to be cut, transported, and precisely placed every 2.5 minutes, without stopping day or night, for 2 decades straight. Considering the size of the blocks, the distances involved, and the supposed tools at hand, this seems implausible. Modern engineers who have tried to replicate even a small fraction of the pyramid's construction using primitive methods have repeatedly failed to achieve similar results. Some theorists suggest that the builders might have had access to techniques now lost to history, such as geopolymer casting, where stone blocks were poured rather than carved, or unknown energy sources that helped lift and position the stones. These ideas remain controversial, but they persist precisely because the traditional explanations leave so many questions unanswered. If copper tools and human labor are insufficient to explain the construction, then what was the true method? Even the transportation of the stones raises serious doubts. Moving multi-ton granite blocks over hundreds of miles without wheeled vehicles or advanced ships will require an immense amount of planning and coordination. The idea that these stones were floated up the Nile on barges is part of the mainstream theory. Yet there is little physical evidence to support the existence of a dock or infrastructure at the pyramid site capable of managing such a large-scale operation. Taken together, these inconsistencies suggest that the Great Pyramid's construction involved techniques and knowledge far beyond what traditional history credits the builders with. The mismatch between the simplicity of the supposed tools and the complexity of the finished structure forces us to reconsider what we think we know about ancient Egypt. Whether the answer lies in forgotten technologies, lost civilizations, or something more mysterious, the fact remains, the pyramid continues to challenge our understanding of what was possible in the ancient world. Over the years, as cracks have appeared in the mainstream explanation of how the Great Pyramid was built, alternative theories have gained popularity, some rooted in serious academic inquiry, others straying into the territory of the speculative or even the paranormal. These theories emerge not from a desire to sensationalize, but rather from an honest attempt to explain the seemingly unexplainable. How a civilization from 4,500 years ago, supposedly armed with nothing more than copper tools and wooden sleds, managed to create a monument that continues to defy the capabilities of even modern engineering. Among the most debated and controversial of these theories are those involving lost ancient civilizations and extraterrestrial involvement. One widely discussed theory is that the builders of the pyramids were not the ancient Egyptians as we know them, but rather a lost, advanced civilization that predates recorded history. Proponents of this idea argue that the complexity and precision of the Great Pyramid point to a level of scientific and architectural knowledge that does not fit into the established historical timeline. Some suggest that this civilization may have been destroyed by a global cataclysm, such as the end of the last ice age, and that the knowledge they possessed, mathematics, astronomy, and possibly even advanced energy systems, was lost, only fragments of which survived and were inherited by later cultures like the Egyptians. This line of thinking gained momentum from the work of researchers like Graham Hancock, who argue that the alignment of the pyramids of the stars of Orion's belt is not just symbolic, but may hold deeper cosmological significance. According to these researchers, the positioning of the pyramids reflect a snapshot of the stars not from 2500 BCE, when the pyramids were supposedly built, but from as far back as 10,500 BCE, a date which coincides with other ancient myths of a golden age or lost continent, such as Atlantis. The suggestion is that the pyramids may not only be far older than mainstream Egyptologists claim, but that their construction was part of a global effort by an advanced society to encode astronomical knowledge into enduring stone monuments. Then there's a theory that has captivated the imagination of millions, that the Great Pyramid and perhaps other megalithic sites around the world were either influenced or directly assisted by extraterrestrial beings. This idea, often referred to as the ancient aliens theory, posits that beings from another planet visited Earth in the distant past and shared advanced technologies and knowledge with early human civilizations. Proponents point to the technical anomalies in the pyramid's construction, the perfect alignment to true north, the incorporation of complex mathematical constants, the precision of the stone cutting, and the unexplained energy properties of certain chambers, as evidence that the builders had access to technologies well beyond the scope of Bronze Age humanity. Supporters of the extraterrestrial hypothesis often highlight ancient texts and myths that describe sky gods, beings who descended from the heavens and imparted wisdom to mankind. In Egyptian mythology, gods like Thoth and Osiris are said to have come from the stars and brought knowledge of writing, law, and building. These stories are mirrored in the ancient Sumerian account of the Anunnaki, who were described as powerful entities from the heavens. According to this view, the pyramid may not have been a tomb at all, but a multifunctional structure designed for purposes we still don't understand, possibly as a power generator, a stargate, or an energy transmitter. Adding more intrigue to these theories are findings made with modern technology. Ground-penetrating radar and thermal imaging have revealed hidden chambers and structural anomalies inside the pyramid, some of which are still unexplored. In 2017, researchers discovered a massive void above the Grand Gallery, a space at least 100 feet long, whose purpose remains unknown. The fact that such a significant part of the pyramid remained undiscovered until recently suggests that the monument may hold more secrets than we ever imagined, and perhaps that some of those secrets were deliberately hidden or designed to be discovered only when humanity reached a certain level of technological advancement. Skeptics of these alternative theories argue that such ideas lack hard evidence and rely too heavily on gaps in knowledge. They claim that the appeal of lost civilizations and aliens arises more from our fascination with the unknown than from any real historical or scientific basis. However, what cannot be denied is that the Great Pyramid continues to generate questions that mainstream archaeology cannot convincingly answer. The scale, precision, and enduring mystery of the structure invite us to consider that history may be more complex, and possibly more fantastic, than we currently believe. Whether one leans toward the theory of a forgotten high-tech human civilization or the involvement of visitors from other worlds, the deeper point remains the same. The Great Pyramid challenges the boundaries of our understanding. It invites us to imagine a past that is not simply a straight line of linear progress, but a layered and dynamic story, full of lost knowledge, unexplained capabilities, and perhaps connections to realms beyond our planet. The search for the true origins of this ancient wonder is not just a matter of archaeology. It's a quest to rediscover the deeper truths of human history and to explore the full scope of what may have once been known and what might still be hidden in plain sight. Despite centuries of exploration and research, the Great Pyramid of Giza continues to guard secrets that defy explanation. One of the most intriguing aspects of this mystery lies not in what has been found, but in what remains conspicuously missing. For such a monumental structure, immense in scale, mathematically precise, and enduring over millennia, there is a surprising absence of direct evidence explaining how it was built or even why it was constructed in such an extraordinary manner. The lack of detailed construction records, written blueprints, or explicit mentions in ancient Egyptian texts leaves an enormous gap in our understanding, prompting speculation that either key pieces of evidence have been lost to time or perhaps deliberately hidden. This void of information becomes more perplexing when one considers how well documented other aspects of ancient Egyptian life were. The Egyptians were meticulous record keepers. Temples, tombs, and monuments are covered in hieroglyphs, detailing religious beliefs, dynastic histories, daily life, and funerary practices. Yet, for the greatest architectural feat in their history, there are no comprehensive inscriptions explaining how it was built, who exactly built it, and what methods were employed. This absence is not merely a minor historical oversight. It is a glaring anomaly. If the pyramid was indeed constructed as a royal tomb, why are there no funerary texts, wall carvings, or inscriptions in the king's chamber? Why is the internal design so stark and unadorned, in contrast to the richly decorated tombs found in the Valley of the Kings? Adding to the mystery are the discoveries made in modern times through advanced scanning and imaging technologies. In 2017, an international team of researchers using cosmic ray-based muon detection revealed the existence of a previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery of the Great Pyramid. This chamber-like space, now known as the Big Void, measures at least 100 feet in length and lies deep within the core of the pyramid. Its purpose remains unknown, as it is inaccessible and shows no signs of having been entered in modern history. Its existence raises further questions. Was it part of the original design? Is it symbolic, functional, or perhaps even a storage chamber for something we've yet to discover? There are also numerous unexplored shafts and sealed passages within the pyramid. Two mysterious narrow shafts extend from the king's and queen's chambers. In 1993, a robotic camera sent into one of these shafts discovered a small door with copper handles. In 2002, another robot pierced the door and revealed yet another hidden chamber or blockage behind it. What lies beyond remains a matter of speculation, as exploration was paused due to political, logistical, and preservation concerns. But the implication is undeniable. The pyramid is far from fully explored, and its internal structure may still be concealing crucial answers. Some researchers believe that certain findings over the past century have been quietly suppressed or ignored due to their controversial implications. There are persistent claims that unusual artifacts, some metallic, some possibly technological, were discovered in or around the pyramids during early excavations and then removed without public documentation. While these claims are difficult to verify and often dismissed as conspiracy, they persist because of the broader pattern of missing or incomplete evidence. Questions linger about why some discoveries are quickly publicized while others seem to vanish into obscurity. Furthermore, there is the issue of site access and controlled narratives. Many of the most promising areas for exploration remain off-limits to independent researchers, particularly the subterranean chambers beneath the Sphinx and Pyramid Plateau. Some believe that these areas may contain ancient text tools or artifacts that could rewrite human history. The idea that an ancient cache of lost knowledge, perhaps even a library of forgotten science, might be buried beneath the sands of Giza has long tantalized both scholars and mystics alike. Also worth noting is the secrecy and selectiveness around modern excavations. For example, despite advancements in non-invasive scanning technologies, further exploration of the Big Void and other sealed areas has not been aggressively pursued in recent years. Some suggest this is due to political restrictions, lack of funding, or preservation concerns, while others see it as part of a broader unwillingness to confront discoveries that might challenge the established historical narrative. All of this leads to an unsettling possibility, that our understanding of the Great Pyramid remains incomplete not just because evidence has been lost over time, but because critical information may be hidden, misinterpreted, or even deliberately kept from public knowledge. Whether through institutional bias, bureaucratic control, or cultural gatekeeping, it is possible that some pieces of the puzzle have been suppressed due to the radical implications they could carry. If the true origins and purpose of the pyramid were to be revealed, if it turned out to be a product of a forgotten civilization, or if it encoded scientific knowledge far beyond its time, the entire framework of human history would have to be reconsidered. And so, the mystery deepens. The Great Pyramid, while standing boldly in plain sight, may still be guarding knowledge encoded in stone, concealed in secret chambers, or lost in ancient archives never meant to be found. Until we unlock those final doors, literal or metaphorical, we remain in the shadow of a structure that challenges our understanding of the past, and perhaps hints at truths far greater than we have yet imagined. The Great Pyramid still stands, unchanged by time, untouched by definitive answers. We've explored its impossible precision, its cosmic alignments, its hidden chambers, and the uncomfortable gaps in the official story. Was it the work of forgotten civilization, or guided by knowledge from beyond our world? One truth is certain. The deeper we look, the stranger the answers become. Perhaps the pyramids were never meant to be fully understood, only discovered layer by layer as our consciousness evolves. And maybe, just maybe, the builders are waiting for us to finally ask the right questions. Because the real mystery isn't just in how the pyramids were built. If you believe history needs to be questioned, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to History Vault. Your curiosity keeps the truth alive. It's in why we were meant to find them,